On the topic of racing dynasties, you've worked with both Rosbergs, Keke and Nico. I think Nakajima's as well. Satoru and Kazuki as well.
Sort of, yeah.
Well, let's talk Rosbergs.
Yeah.
Similarities between those two?
Chalk and cheese.
We're sorry to interrupt you, but
Yes,
I did text Keke yesterday, and I said, "Oh, I'm speaking to Frank tomorrow," and he said, "Oh, I do hope he's discreet," and I said, "Well, I hope he's not."
Discreet, yeah. Well, Keke wouldn't be. That was the funny thing. I mean, Keke was very outspoken, and then he went to McLaren, and he'd obviously signed something in his contract with Ron, because the Keke who drove for McLaren was not the Keke I knew. You know, Keke was not backwards in going forward with an opinion. But he had such fantastic car control.
Fascinating. And you say Keke and Nico are chalk and cheese.
I would say their approach was, yeah.
The approach was different, but what about the way they drove the car?
I mean, the thing is, by the time Nico was driving for Williams, I was helping. You know, I wasn't looking at his data and running his car and all the rest of the stuff, so I wouldn't have as close a relationship with him. Plus, of course, for Nico, I was the old bloke who used to work with his dad, you know. And with the Nakajimas, Satoru hardly spoke any English, and so you didn't have a close relationship with him. You had a bit of a relationship with his translator. I think his son is probably pretty good, to be honest, but I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it, to say.
While we're talking drivers, Nelson and Nigel, chalk and cheese as well. Was that relationship always destined to break down?
They were not going to get on. They were very different characters. It was very weird, to be honest, because when Nigel first drove for Williams, we got on incredibly well. And in fact, he used to stay here. If we were testing at Silverstone, he'd be here, he'd be rolling around on the carpet with my kids and, you know, normal family stuff. And for some reason, at some stage, I think he decided that I must be trying to help Nelson to screw him. And it was, the relationship changed.
Was that when you started race engineering, Nelson? Or were you
No, I was racing
all the way through?
Yeah, because even when he first came, I was race engineering Keke, not him. And I don't know. I mean, Nelson was very good at winding people up. But then Nigel, too, used to... I do remember on one occasion, there was something in the paper about how Nelson was doing something dreadful to Nigel and rubbish. I can't remember exactly what it was. And Steve Hallam, who'd been at Lotus, he came to see me. He says, "Is it true that Nelson so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so?" And I said, "Well, no, actually." He said, "No." He said, "Didn't think so." He said, "That's what Nigel was like." So I suspect that Nigel, if he had a teammate who was close to him in performance, was a bit edgy. But the thing is, I've always had the attitude, even when I was race engineering one of the cars, my job is to come first and second. And I don't care which one's first, as long as the other one's second.
How difficult was it to be impartial?
Not at all. I'm a team person rather than a driver fan. And for me, the most important thing was for us as a team to come first and second.
Who was the best driver you worked with?
Well, it's impossible to say, isn't it? Because it's different eras. And it was interesting working with Michael Schumacher. I don't think he liked me very much. I was much too old for him. And he was much more into wanting to look at the data on the computer. And I wasn't going to fill his mind full of the fact that the data on the computer didn't have the most important things on it, like tyre temperature and the stuff that I was really interested in. It was interesting because he was very committed and very fit and very ruthless and selfish. And I worked 2 tests with Prost, and he was outstanding as well, but obviously never worked at a race meeting with him, so I've got...
So that was when he was testing the Ligier?
Yeah.
What stood out about Alain Prost?
Well, he was quick. That was the most amazing thing. I mean, he just got in the car. Now, I know the psychology would be part of it, because he's very mentally... Thierry Boutsen was a mate of Senna's, so he obviously wanted to destroy him, but I can't remember what it was. But he was well over a second faster than Thierry.
Which racetrack?
Ricard and Estoril.
But you can't have been that surprised. At that time, it was in 1992, wasn't it? So
yeah, but I
he
mean,
was a 3-time world champion.
I just thought, I didn't think any driver was that much quicker than one of the others, frankly. He was so much faster than Thierry that I didn't believe that anybody was that much faster than any of the others. I actually thought And that probably taught me a lesson that it'd take me years to learn, that the drivers were actually much closer in talent. And about, I knew that one driver was better than the other in the team because you saw consistently one of them was quicker. But I thought that pretty well any driver would be able to win in the fastest car. And that turned out not to be true. And it was Prost that proved it to me.